We'll start with just how the funding works. So essentially, there's funding that comes from the federal government and state government. And then the funding basically you apply, let's say you're a parent and you're someone, this was started so that parents could go to education, right, or to work. And so then part of the child care funding is covered through the Wisconsin Share programs, which is a mix of federal and state funding. Is that correct?
That is correct. I would say that the bulk of that funding is federal funding. The state of Wisconsin puts in the required match to draw down our federal funds, but the large majority of that funding is the federal funds that come through the Child Care Development Fund.
Okay. And then that's tied to the student or the child, correct? But it goes straight from the government to the child care provider, right?
It goes directly from Department of Children and Families to the parents
Oh, okay.
and is loaded onto Wisconsin has a system called Parent Pay. It's an electronic benefit card system where the benefits are loaded onto those cards. Was created as a way to sort of there had been a desire across the nation to sort of get the child care market to not imitate, to be as closely aligned with how private pay families take care of childcare. And so the funding is loaded onto eligible parents, working parents' cards, and then they pay the same as a private pay family would pay at the beginning of the month for the care that they will be using throughout that month.
Okay. And that it's loaded onto a card, so it's not like they're just getting a check into their or money into their bank account or something.
No, they are not getting it, and it can only be used for identified childcare programs where the agreements are in place.
Correct.
Mhm.
So there's the funding that goes based on the child, and then there's also like the bridge payments going on now that was part of this budget, correct? That providers can apply for the grants.
So the bridge payments are available until the end of June of this year, 2026. And those payments are covered through the state budget process. And they are federal dollars. They are interest earned off of federal dollars when COVID money was flowing to the state. The state secured that money, and this pot of money then goes directly to child care programs who have to verify all sorts of record keeping within their programs to draw those dollars down. Two very different pieces. And that money does go from the state directly into the accounts of child care programs after they have verified everything in the application process.
Okay.
And it is not linked to, the application is linked to numbers of children you serve and all of that, but it is very different from what our shares payments, which is our child care subsidy program, very different from that. And it is ending in June, whereas shares is a program that will continue on and has been in place since I think the mid to late 90s, probably. So that's two very different programs.
hmm Okay. And then so the funding is those two areas. It's not tied to like staff or anything else like that, correct?
Uh, Staffing within a childcare program.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, in order to be in compliance with Department of Children and Families regulations and licensing, which is critical, you must be in compliance with that in order to receive subsidy payments, the shares payments. And staffing and ratios and qualifications of staff are all part of that regulatory process.
Okay.
So you have to have staff, you have to be within ratios that the state has identified. There had been within what preceded the bridge payments, which was called child care counts, there had been a separate program in child care counts that was to be used directly for wages and compensation and retention of the staff. But the bridge payments right now operate slightly differently.
Okay, got it. So I mean, for something we talked about it briefly before, but when there's obviously there's the alleged fraud that's taking place with these daycares in Minnesota and creates, I guess, not I guess, it creates negative publicity for child care centers. I mean, what's your reaction when you hear about something like that?
So my primary reaction is childcare is an industry that only survives based on women because it is over 98% women in doing childcare work. It is women who want to provide an excellent service to families in their community, and they want to care for kids and they want to provide for child development. Um, and they don't get paid much. This is an industry where close to probably 30% of them rely on public assistance themselves because the wage structure is so low. And so you have an industry that is sort of chronically in the news and operates in a really fragile kind of environment and can easily be politicized. But the bottom line is the huge majority of childcare programs across our entire nation in every state is operating in compliance with all core regulatory requirements of anything the feds put out. There will be fraud because fraud happens in systems, every probably possible type of system. But Wisconsin has a lot of effective mechanisms in place to ensure that that is minor if it happens at all. They have a program integrity unit within our Bureau of Child Care Subsidy Administration. Programs are trained on it in signing up to take shares. They verify all of what is included in that. And so when you go after an industry where their wages are poverty level, we haven't seen increases in the funding, um, parents are tapped out and have no more money to put towards childcare. Uh, and then you come after them for this, fraud potential that is happening in Minnesota. You're taking a fragile system and you're pulling out whatever foundational supports programs feel they have right now. So it's a very hard balance and it's tricky for childcare programs.
Sure. And could you walk me through a little bit about how that oversight differs in Wisconsin? I know there was, I think 2009 that there was a big fraud that was uncovered, and then it resulted in a lot of new regulations, transparency, and all that. So, could you just walk me through for people wondering, like, could this fraud happen in Wisconsin, or what measures are in place such that it wouldn't if there are more measures in place? Do you mind walking me through that?
Yeah, back in probably about 2009, there was fraud investigations in Wisconsin, which did result in identification of fraud that was happening, got significant publicity. And as a result of that, several things happened. Programs that were identified as committing fraud obviously were closed. The state went after repayment of funds. All of those things were in place. In addition to that, the state beefed up what we call program integrity in the child care system, excuse me. So the state beefed up this program integrity. And so the program integrity is around ensuring that our licensing regulations are at the highest sort of um, place of securing childcare programs that are to ensure that you are providing good, safe care for kids. There are unannounced visits to childcare programs to ensure that all licensing is being followed. There is increased levels of reporting on enrollment and attendance and ages of children served. And so significant systems were put in place to ensure that childcare programs received the training they need to operate a highly accountable childcare program, business practices for childcare programs, all of those things. I would suspect Wisconsin is in a really strong position right now in terms of any potential threats of fraud. I think we have done a lot in the past 15 years to address that and ensure deep accountability, including audits of programs. And I think we're in a really strong position.
Okay. And I know the HHS at the federal level, they said that it'll go from full-time enrollment to verified attendance records
Mhm.
for tracking. They would also require photo or receipt verification. Is that something that could impact Wisconsin childcare providers?
Yeah, so I think you're talking about two slightly different issues. One is uh, the regulations that are within the Child Care Development Fund itself from the feds and guidance that states need to do in order to be able to pull down those dollars, right?
Mhm.
And those had changed and we're moving towards allowing and program states are allowed to pay based on enrollment as opposed to paying based on attendance. Um, when I had young children, I paid based on enrollment. Childcare programs have to be able to operate and have a slot funded for a child so that they can staff and they can pay all their bills. And so the federal government was moving towards ensuring that childcare operated like most other markets and did what happened in private market. Now, what is happening is under the current administration in DC, um, the feds are moving towards saying, well, you may pay based on attendance only. So you're no longer going to be required if all of these things pass in the current conversations happening in DC. What they're saying is states will have a choice. You don't have to pay based on attendance. You don't have to pay based on enrollment. You can make your choices within that structure. And there's a few pieces to that that we don't need to go into in more detail, but it really is to give states the flexibility to do either or in terms of how they support subsidy.
Sure. Okay. And so this wouldn't necessarily have that wouldn't necessarily have an impact on providers because it would be likely to stay the same essentially because unless Wisconsin were to choose to go to the verified attendance.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
got it.
The other thing, David, I should say, and maybe this is what you were talking about, there was a piece that was issued yesterday evening out of DHHS, so the feds, that is saying in order for states to continue to draw down their current funding, they need to do two things. And it's kind of under this guise of defend the spend. This is a current DC administrative sort of requirement that they've moved to, which is just saying you need to up the ante in terms of ensuring that what you are drawing down in federal funds is all justified. So it is ensuring that states have attendance records, that they have enrollment records, and that they can justify those expenses. And then it's just ensuring that of your entire pot of money from the feds, you are using it for the correct types of of activities. So there's money that goes to purchase direct care for families, that's shares. There's money that goes into what is considered quality initiatives and funds many organizations across the state that support child care providers. There's money that goes towards licensing. So all of those things now need a tighter level of assurances and justification from states to draw down their money.
Okay. So it seems like, so as we've talked and as I've researched too, like it's not like the funding in Wisconsin is necessarily in jeopardy of, or like, as you said, Wisconsin is in a decent spot. But for people wondering, like, how reliant are these daycare centers on funding from the state and from the federal government?
How reliant are childcare programs on this funding? Is
Yeah.
that what you're asking?
Like why, I guess like why is it something that people might, I can already picture the Facebook comments, well, why do we need to fund these? So I guess essentially what I'm asking is like, what is your best case for why should continue funding childcare centers? How important is the funding?
Yeah. So to me, I think there's a variety of ways you can address that question. The one that I'll talk about first is simply saying that our economy functions because parents can go to work. Parents can go to work because they have care for their children. Many parents have their children in a regulated childcare program. That is very important. And we know that it is needed as basic infrastructure in our state for our economy to function, period. We know that approximately 35,000 children are supported through our subsidy program every month. And it is not a situation where you have a child care program where 100% of their children are on subsidy. Our subsidy dollars can be spent in programs all over the state. You take that subsidy money away, even if you're a program where only 5%, 10% of your enrollment is families that are receiving the Wisconsin Share Subsidy dollars, you take that money out, suddenly those razor thin margins that childcare programs are already operating on is gutted. And even small cuts, like 10%, 5%, will have devastating impact on this already fragile system of care. Additionally, we know that almost 50% of our subsidy dollars are supporting school-age children. And so we get this money, people think childcare, and it's true, but it's not just childcare for really young children. It is childcare. Half of our money goes to support childcare for before school, after school care, summer care for school-age children. Um, you take that pot of money out of play in our state, that would be absolutely devastating. And I think understanding the role of childcare so that parents can work, so that businesses can be profitable, so that our communities can be livable, our economy can be strong. Those are, to me, really compelling reasons why supporting subsidy for um, income eligible working families is critical.
Sure. That's really all I had for you as far as questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we end?
Um, the only other thing that I think I would share is just acknowledging that within the childcare industry right now, we are short at least 4,000 teachers just to fill the classrooms that are open right now and could be providing care. We have this huge shortage of care in our state, but it's not because we don't have seats. It's because we don't have teachers. We do not have enough teachers in childcare to provide all of this care. The more we pick at this industry, the more we look at, oh, fraud is going on, um, the fewer teachers are going to come into this industry. We need teachers that are dedicated, that understand child development, that are willing to work for very low wages to be able to provide this service. So that to me is a really critical piece for people to understand.